The morning sun rose over Buenos Aires like it did every other day. Children walked to school. Parents kissed their families goodbye. Coffee shops filled with laughter and conversation. Nobody looked up at the sky. Nobody had any reason to. Colonel Elena Vasquez stood in her kitchen, watching her daughter Sofia eat breakfast. The little girl was 7 years old, with dark curly hair and her father's bright smile. She was telling a story about her best friend at school, speaking so fast that Elena could barely keep up. "Slow down, my love," Elena laughed. "Your cereal is getting cold." "Mama, cereal is supposed to be cold," Sofia said, rolling her eyes like only a 7-year-old could. Elena's husband, Marco, walked in and kissed the top of Sofia's head. He was a doctor at the city hospital, a gentle man who had never raised his voice in anger. He handed Elena a cup of coffee and smiled at her. "Another day in paradise," he said. Elena did not know that she had exactly 43 minutes left with her family. She did not know that ships were already entering Earth's atmosphere. She did not know that across the galaxy, an empire had decided that humanity was too weak to resist, too primitive to fight back, too soft to survive. The Vorathi Empire had conquered 12 star systems. They had crushed hundreds of species. Their emperor sat on a throne made from the bones of fallen civilizations. When his advisors showed him images of Earth, he laughed. "They have no fleet," he said. "They have barely left their own moon. This will take one day." He was wrong about many things, but he was most wrong about what humans would do when their world burned. The first sign was a shadow. Elena was washing dishes when she noticed the kitchen grow dark. She looked out the window and saw something impossible. The sky was full of ships, massive ships, black as night, blocking out the sun. Then the world exploded. The sound came first, a roar so loud that Elena felt it in her bones. Then the ground shook. Then the windows shattered. She grabbed Sofia and pulled her under the table, screaming for Marco. The Vorathi did not send soldiers first. They sent fire. Beams of energy fell from the sky like rain, turning buildings into dust, streets into rivers of flame. In the first 10 seconds, 100,000 people died. In the first minute, it was 500,000. Elena held Sofia against her chest and ran. The street outside was chaos. Cars were overturned. People were screaming. Bodies lay everywhere. She could not find Marco. She screamed his name over and over, but there was only fire and smoke and the terrible sound of a city dying. A beam hit the building next to her. The force threw her through the air. She landed hard, her ears ringing, her vision blurred. Sofia was no longer in her arms. Elena crawled through the rubble, calling her daughter's name. Her hands were bleeding. Her uniform was torn. She did not care. She dug through broken concrete and twisted metal, searching for that familiar dark hair, that bright smile. She found Sofia's stuffed rabbit first. It was covered in dust but not damaged. Elena held it to her chest and kept digging. She found Sofia 3 minutes later. The little girl was not moving. Her eyes were closed. She looked like she was sleeping. Elena pulled her daughter into her arms and checked for a pulse. She checked again, and again, and again. There was nothing. Elena screamed. It was not a human sound. It was the sound of something breaking inside a person, something that could never be fixed. She held her daughter's body and screamed until her throat was raw, until she could make no more sound at all. Around her, the city continued to burn. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Buenos Aires was gone. So was New York. So was Tokyo, London, Beijing, Moscow, and 200 other cities. 2 billion people died on the first day. 2 billion more would die in the weeks that followed. The Vorathi ground forces arrived expecting no resistance. They found something else entirely. In the ruins of Shanghai, a group of firefighters armed with nothing but axes attacked a Vorathi patrol. They killed 3 soldiers before they were shot down. In Moscow, a grandmother drove a truck full of explosives into an alien command post. In Cairo, teenagers threw rocks at soldiers in power armor. None of these attacks made sense to the Vorathi. Their databases showed that defeated species always surrendered. They always begged for mercy. They always accepted their place as slaves. Humans did not beg. Elena Vasquez buried her daughter in a park that no longer had trees. She placed the stuffed rabbit on the small grave and knelt in the ash. Marco's body was never found. He was one of millions who simply disappeared, turned to nothing by weapons that humans could not yet understand. She stayed by the grave for a long time. Other survivors walked past her, heading to refugee camps, looking for food and water. Some stopped to offer help. She did not respond. When she finally stood, something had changed in her eyes. The woman who loved to laugh, who danced in the kitchen, who read bedtime stories with funny voices, was gone. Someone else had taken her place. A young lieutenant found her standing among the ruins. He was barely 20 years old, covered in dirt and blood, looking for someone to follow. "Colonel Vasquez?" he asked. "What do we do now?" Elena looked at the sky. The Vorathi ship still circled above, watching, waiting for the last resistance to die. They were so confident, so certain that this small blue planet would fall like all the others. "Now," Elena said, her voice steady and cold, "we make them pay." "With what?" the lieutenant asked. "They have ships. They have technology we cannot match. They have armies." Elena reached down and picked up a piece of broken metal from the street. It was part of a Vorathi weapon, dropped by a dead soldier. She examined it carefully. "They made one mistake," she said. "They did not kill all of us." In the following weeks, the Vorathi declared victory. They sent reports back to their emperor saying that Earth was conquered. They set up occupation zones. They began collecting humans for slave labor. They did not notice the meetings happening in basements and caves. They did not see the scientists studying captured weapons. They did not hear the whispered promises of vengeance passing from person to person, city to city, continent to continent, and they did not see Elena Vasquez, standing in her ruined home one last time, making a vow to her daughter's memory. "I will not rest," she whispered. "I will not stop. I will not show mercy. They came to our home. They killed our children. They burned our world." She picked up her daughter's rabbit and held it tight. "And they will learn that this was the worst mistake in the history of their empire." The Vorathi emperor received reports that resistance was increasing instead of decreasing. His advisors said it was just the last struggle of a dying species. "Primitives always thrash before they die," the emperor said, waving his hand. "Give them a few months. They will learn to serve." He went back to planning his next conquest. He did not know that across the darkness of space, in caves and bunkers and hidden laboratories, humanity was not dying. Humanity was preparing. And at the center of it all stood a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The sky had burned. The world had fallen. 2 billion souls had been silenced. But Earth was not finished. Earth was just getting started. 5 years passed. The Vorathi believed they had won. Their occupation forces controlled the surface of Earth. They had built labor camps and processing centers. They collected humans for work in their mines across the galaxy. Every month, ships full of slaves left Earth and never returned. The Emperor stopped thinking about the small blue planet. He had other wars to fight, other species to crush. Earth was just another conquered world, another source of workers for his empire. His advisors told him that human resistance had finally ended. They were all wrong. Deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, in tunnels that had been built for another war long ago, Elena Vasquez stood before a wall of screens. She was no longer a colonel. The survivors of Earth's military had promoted her to general. She was the highest-ranking officer still alive. And she had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. Her hair was now streaked with gray. Her face had new lines around the eyes and mouth. But her gaze was sharp as a blade. And when she spoke, everyone listened. "Show me the new engine tests," she said. A young engineer named Dr. James Chen pulled up the data. He was one of thousands of scientists working in secret facilities across the planet. Some were underground. Some were beneath the oceans. Some were on the dark side of the moon, hidden from Vorathi sensors. "The modifications are complete," Dr. Chen said. "We removed the safety limits from the captured Vorathi engines. Our ships can now travel 3 times faster than anything in their fleet." General Vasquez nodded. When humans first captured Vorathi technology, they expected to find machines far beyond their understanding. What they found instead was something different. The Vorathi had stopped innovating centuries ago. They used the same designs their ancestors had created. They followed the same rules, never questioning, never improving. Humans did not follow rules. "What about the weapons?" Vasquez asked. Another scientist, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, stepped forward. She was an older woman with kind eyes that hid a fierce intelligence. "We have developed kinetic impactors," she said. Simple metal rods accelerated to extreme speeds. The Vorathi abandoned this technology because they considered it primitive. They have no defenses against it. And the AI systems? Ready for deployment. The Vorathi stopped using artificial intelligence after a war with machines thousands of years ago. They have religious laws against it. Our battle computers will be able to calculate and adapt faster than any Vorathi commander can think. General Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. It was the first time she had smiled in years. The Vorathi had made so many assumptions about humanity. They assumed humans would surrender. They assumed humans could not learn. They assumed humans would fight like everyone else. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In a massive underground shipyard beneath the Atlantic Ocean, the first human warship was nearly complete. It was called the TRS Remembrance. The letters TRS stood for Terran Resistance Ship. Its hull was black as space, designed to be invisible to enemy sensors. Its weapons were hidden inside its body, ready to extend and fire in seconds. But what made the Remembrance special was not its technology. It was the names. Every surface of the ship's interior was covered with names. 2 billion names, written in tiny letters, covering the walls and floors and ceilings. Every person who died in the first attack, every child, every parent, every friend. The crew walked among the dead every day, surrounded by the people they were fighting to avenge. General Vasquez visited the Remembrance when it was finished. She walked through its corridors slowly, reading names as she passed. She stopped when she found them. Sofia Vasquez, Marco Vasquez, her daughter, her husband, written forever on the walls of humanity's first warship. She placed her hand on the names and closed her eyes. "I am almost ready," she whispered. "Wait for me just a little longer." Captain David Okonkwo found her there. He was the Remembrance's commanding officer, a tall man from Nigeria who had lost his entire extended family in the attack on Lagos. He understood Vasquez better than most. "General," he said softly. "The crew is assembled." Vasquez opened her eyes and turned to face him. The moment of softness was gone. In its place was the Iron Mother, the woman who had built an army from ashes. "Then let us speak to them." The crew of the Remembrance stood at attention in the main cargo bay. There were 400 of them, men and women from every nation on Earth. Some were professional soldiers. Some were teachers and farmers and engineers who had learned to fight. All of them had lost someone. All of them had volunteered to die if necessary. Vasquez stood before them, her hands clasped behind her back. 5 years ago, she said, they came to our home. They killed our families. They burned our cities. They thought we would break. She paused, letting her words settle. They were wrong. A murmur went through the crowd. Vasquez raised her hand for silence. "We are not building a fleet," she continued. "Fleets are for nations. Fleets are for empires. We are building something different. We are building a reckoning." She gestured to the walls around them, covered with the names of the dead. "These are the people who could not be here today. These are the people who never got to fight back. They are watching us now. They are waiting for us to finish what was started." Her voice grew harder. "The Vorathi have forgotten about us. They think we are slaves. They think we are broken. In a few months, we will remind them of their mistake. We will carry the names of our dead across the stars, and we will write those names on the ruins of their empire." Captain Okonkwo stepped forward. "General, what about their numbers? Their intelligence reports say they have thousands of warships." "We have 40. 42. Vasquez corrected. "And you are right. They have more ships, more soldiers, more resources, but they have one weakness that we do not share." "What weakness?" Vasquez's eyes were cold as ice. "They have something left to lose. We do not. Every person on this ship has already lost everything. We fight with nothing behind us but graves. That makes us more dangerous than any fleet in the galaxy." 3 months later, a Vorathi patrol ship stumbled upon a human convoy near the edge of the solar system. The patrol ship was fast and well armed. Its captain expected to capture more slaves for the labor camps. The convoy did not run. It did not surrender. It did not even slow down. The Vorathi captain watched in confusion as small objects launched from the human ships. They were just metal rods, moving too fast for his sensors to track. By the time he realized what was happening, the rods had punched through his ship like needles through paper. The patrol ship exploded. Its debris drifted silently through space. No distress signal was sent. No report reached the Empire. In her command center beneath the Swiss mountains, General Vasquez received word of the encounter. "First blood," she said quietly. Her officers gathered around her, waiting for instructions. "Begin final preparations," Vasquez ordered. "In 30 days we move." She looked at the star map on the wall, at the 12 systems of the Vorathi Empire spread across the galaxy. "They struck Earth first," she said. "Now we are going to remind them why that was a mistake. The forging was complete, the weapon was ready, and humanity was coming." The Vorathi commander of Earth, a tall creature named Vexaran, was eating his morning meal when the alarms began. He looked up from his food with annoyance. False alarms were common. The primitive human equipment sometimes triggered sensors by mistake. Then his window exploded inward, and fire consumed the room. Across the planet, at exactly the same moment, every Vorathi installation came under attack. Bases hidden in mountains were struck by missiles launched from submarines that had been silent for 5 years. Orbital stations were torn apart by kinetic rods traveling at impossible speeds. Ships that had been floating peacefully in Earth's atmosphere suddenly found themselves surrounded by enemies that came from nowhere. Operation Lazarus had begun. The name was chosen carefully. Lazarus was a man from an old Earth story who died and came back to life. Humanity had been declared dead by the Vorathi Empire. Now it was rising from the grave. General Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the TRS Remembrance, watching the battle unfold on her tactical display. Her face showed no emotion. She had planned this attack for 5 years. Every detail had been studied. Every possibility had been prepared for. Northern Hemisphere cleared, Captain Okonkwo reported. All enemy bases destroyed. Southern Hemisphere at 90%, another officer added. Minor resistance near the Antarctic station. Orbital status: 12 enemy ships destroyed, 3 attempting to flee. "Do not let them escape," Vasquez said. "No warnings can reach the Empire." The 3 fleeing ships never made it to the edge of the solar system. Human vessels, faster and more maneuverable than anything the Vorathi had ever faced, cut them off and tore them apart. Not a single Vorathi survived. Not a single message was sent. In 6 hours, every Vorathi soldier and ship in the solar system was dead. For 5 years, the Vorathi had occupied Earth with a force of 50,000 soldiers and 200 ships. They had believed this was more than enough to control a broken species. They had been wrong. As the last fires died down, as the wreckage of alien ships fell through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, General Vasquez gave her next order. "Open a communication channel to the Vorathi homeworld. Maximum power. I want every ship in their fleet to hear this." Her communications officer hesitated. "General, if we broadcast at maximum power, the entire galaxy will hear us." "Good," Vasquez said. "I want the entire galaxy to hear us." The channel opened. For the first time in 5 years, humanity spoke to the stars. General Vasquez stood before the camera, her uniform clean and pressed, her medals shining on her chest. Behind her, through the bridge windows, the blue curve of Earth was visible. Her planet, her home, the world that had burned and refused to die. "This message is for the Emperor of the Vorathi Empire," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "My name is General Elena Vasquez of the Terran Resistance. 5 years ago, you attacked my world without warning. You killed 2 billion of my people. You thought you had destroyed us." She paused, letting her words travel across the void of space. "You struck Earth first. You killed our children. You burned our cities. You thought us weak because we wept for our dead." Her eyes seemed to look directly through the camera, directly at the Emperor himself. "Now we are coming for you. And we do not weep anymore." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 ships and 100 worlds, beings watched the message in shock. A species that had been declared extinct was alive, more than alive. It was angry. The Vorathi Emperor received the message while sitting on his throne. He watched the human woman speak, and for the first time in his long life, he felt something cold in his chest. Not fear, he told himself. Emperors did not feel fear. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. His admirals scrambled to gather information. "Our best estimate is 40 to 50 vessels," one answered. "Small compared to our fleet." "Then destroy them," the Emperor commanded. "Send 300 ships to their system. Burn their planet to nothing. Leave no survivors this time." 300 Vorathi warships assembled at Proxima Centauri, the nearest star system to Earth. They were the pride of the Empire, massive vessels bristling with weapons, Their commanders were experienced veterans who had crushed dozens of rebellions. They expected to find primitive ships crewed by desperate survivors. They found something else. 42 human vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of the Vorathi fleet. They were smaller than the Vorathi ships. They looked almost fragile. The Vorathi admiral smiled. This would be easy. All ships, fire at will, he ordered. The Vorathi weapons reached out toward the human fleet. Energy beams and missiles filled space. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships were not there anymore. They moved like nothing the Vorathi had ever seen. They did not fly in formation. They did not follow predictable patterns. They twisted and spun and accelerated in ways that should have been impossible. Ways that would have killed any Vorathi crew. Human pilots had trained for years in secret. They had pushed their bodies to the limit, learning to withstand forces that would crush normal beings. They flew with an aggression that the Vorathi could not understand. The first Vorathi ship exploded when a kinetic rod punched through its reactor. The second followed moments later. The third was rammed by a human vessel whose pilot ejected at the last second, sacrificing his ship to destroy an enemy 10 times its size. The Vorathi admiral screamed orders at his captains. Form defensive positions, concentrate fire, retreat and regroup. Nobody listened. The battle had become chaos, and in chaos, the humans thrived. Captain Okonkwo flew the Remembrance directly into the heart of the Vorathi formation. His ship was hit again and again, its armor melting, its systems failing. He did not stop. Target their flagship, he ordered. The flagship was the largest Vorathi ship, the personal vessel of the admiral. Its shields were the strongest in the fleet. It should have been untouchable. The Remembrance fired everything it had. Kinetic rods, missiles, energy weapons captured from dead Vorathi and improved by human engineers. The flagship's shields flickered and died. A moment later, the ship itself came apart in a ball of white fire. When the battle ended, 17 human ships remained. 0 Vorathi ships survived. The sole survivor was the admiral himself, pulled from an escape pod by human marines. He was brought before General Vasquez on the bridge of the Remembrance. The ship was damaged, its corridors filled with smoke, its crew exhausted and bleeding, but they had won. The admiral looked at Vasquez with pure hatred. "You are monsters," he hissed. "You fight like animals. You do not follow any rules of war." Vasquez looked at him for a long moment. "You killed 2 billion of my people," she said quietly, "including my daughter. She was 7 years old. She liked to read stories about princesses." The admiral said nothing. "You want to know why we fight like this?" Vasquez leaned closer. "Because we have nothing left to lose. You took everything from us. Our families, our cities, our future. All we have left is revenge." She turned away from him. "Take him to the holding cells. We will deliver him to his emperor personally." As the admiral was dragged away, Captain Okonkwo approached Vasquez. "General, the fleet is ready to move. What are your orders?" Vasquez looked out at the stars, at the distant lights of the Vorathi Empire. "We push forward," she said. "We do not stop until we reach their homeworld." The first battle was over. The war had just begun. The human fleet pushed deeper into Vorathi space, and the galaxy began to change. For 3,000 years, the Vorathi Empire had ruled through fear. They crushed any species that resisted. They enslaved any species that surrendered. They had forgotten what it felt like to lose. Now they were learning. General Vasquez stood in her quarters on the Remembrance, studying maps of enemy territory. The ship had been repaired after Proxima Centauri, but it still carried scars from the battle. So did she. She had not slept more than 3 hours a night in months. Dark circles hung under her eyes. Her hands sometimes shook when she was alone. She kept moving forward because stopping meant remembering, and remembering meant feeling the weight of everything she had lost. On her desk sat Sophia's stuffed rabbit. It was the only personal item in the room. Everything else was tactical reports and weapons specifications. The rabbit looked out of place, a soft thing in a hard world. Vasquez touched it gently, then returned to her maps. The next target was a planet called Keth Prime. According to captured Vorathi records, it was a labor world, a place where enslaved species worked in mines until they died. The Vorathi had conquered the Kethari people centuries ago and had nearly wiped them out. When the human fleet arrived at Keth Prime, they expected a fight. What they found was something different. The Vorathi garrison had fled. They had seen what happened at Proxima Centauri. and they were afraid. For the first time in living memory, Vorathi soldiers had run from a battle. Captain Okonkwo brought the remembrance into orbit around the planet. Through the viewports, they could see the scars of mining operations covering the surface, great wounds in the earth where alien hands had dug for precious metals. No enemy ships detected, the sensor officer reported, but we are receiving transmissions from the surface. Multiple sources. What are they saying? The officer listened carefully. They are asking if we are really human. They are asking if we have come to free them. Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her voice was firm. Tell them yes. To both questions. The liberation of Keth Prime took 3 days. Human soldiers landed on the surface and opened the labor camps. They found the Kethari in terrible condition, thin and weak from years of abuse. Many could barely walk, but when they saw the human soldiers, when they understood that the Vorathi were truly gone, something changed in their eyes. Hope, an emotion they had forgotten existed. The Kethari leader was an old female named Sayaveth. She had been born in a labor camp and had never known freedom. Her body was covered with scars from Vorathi whips. She walked slowly to meet General Vasquez, her steps unsteady but her head held high. You are the human general, Savith said. We heard your message to the Emperor. We have been repeating your words in secret, in the dark places where the Vorathi could not hear. Vasquez looked at the old woman, at the suffering carved into her body. Your people are free now, Vasquez said. The Vorathi will never hurt you again. Saveth studied her for a long moment. Why? She asked. Your people have suffered greatly. You could simply destroy the Vorathi and leave. Why do you stop to help us? Vasquez was quiet for several seconds. When she spoke, her voice was softer than her officers had heard in years. Because someone should have helped us, she said. When the Vorathi attacked Earth, no one came. No one in the galaxy lifted a finger to save our children. We were alone. She looked at the Kethari people gathering around them, their eyes wide with wonder. I will not let another species feel that alone. If we win this war, it will mean something. Not just revenge. Something more. Saveth reached out and touched Vasquez's hand, her thin fingers gentle. You are not what we expected, she said. The Vorathi told us that all species are selfish, that everyone fights only for themselves. You proved them wrong. Word of Keth Prime spread across the galaxy. Other enslaved species heard that the humans were not just conquerors. They were liberators. They freed prisoners. They shared food and medicine. They taught other species to fight back. One by one, worlds began to rise against the Vorathi. The Talveri, a species of engineers who had been forced to build Vorathi weapons, destroyed their factories and joined the human fleet. The Morath, warriors who had been used as shock troops, turned against their masters and opened fire on their own commanders. The Sindari, ancient beings who had been kept alive only to share their knowledge, used that knowledge to sabotage Vorathi systems across 3 star systems. What had started as 42 human ships became something larger, a fleet of hundreds, a coalition of the wounded and the angry and the hopeful. They called themselves the Liberation Fleet, and at its head flew the Remembrance with its walls of names. But the war took its toll. For every victory, there were losses. Ships destroyed, soldiers killed, worlds that could not be saved in time. General Vasquez carried the weight of every death on her shoulders. She made the hard choices. She sent people to die. She watched friends fall and did not allow herself to mourn. Her officers began to worry. Colonel James Santos, her second in command, finally found the courage to speak. General, you need to rest. You have not taken a single day off in 8 months. You are pushing yourself too hard. Vasquez looked at him with tired eyes. We are winning, she said. We cannot stop now. We will still be winning if you sleep for 8 hours. The fleet can manage without you for 1 night. The fleet is not my concern. Vasquez turned back to her screens. The Vorathi have regrouped. They are building a defense at their homeworld. We need to break through before they finish. Santos stepped closer, lowering his voice. Elena, he said, using her first name for the first time since the war began. Your daughter would not want you to destroy yourself. Vasquez froze. For a moment, Santos thought she would have him removed from the bridge. Instead, she slowly turned to face him. You did not know my daughter, she said. Her voice was very quiet. No, but I know you. The woman who held this fleet together when everyone else wanted to give up. The woman who chose to free the Kethari when she could have left them behind. That woman is worth saving. And she is dying a little more each day. Vasquez said nothing for a long time. That night, she sat in her quarters holding the stuffed rabbit. She thought about Sophia, about Marco, about the morning when the sky burned. She thought about all the people she had killed and all the people she had saved. She thought about what victory would mean, not just revenge, not just destroying the Vorathi. Something more. Something that would make all the suffering worth it. When she finally slept, she dreamed of Buenos Aires before the fire. She dreamed of her daughter laughing in the kitchen. She dreamed of peace. She woke 4 hours later and returned to work. But something had changed. The coldness in her eyes had softened, just slightly. The machine of vengeance had remembered that it was still human. The Liberation Fleet gathered at the edge of Vorathi home territory. Hundreds of ships from a dozen species, united by suffering and hope. General Elena Vasquez looked at them through the viewport of the remembrance. One more battle, she said quietly. One more battle, and it ends. The stars waited in silence. The final march was about to begin. The Vorathi homeworld was called Vorath Prime. It was a beautiful planet of purple oceans and golden forests. 12 billion Vorathi lived there. Children played in parks. Families shared meals. Ordinary people lived ordinary lives. Far from the wars their empire had started, they had no idea what was coming. The Liberation Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 347 ships from 12 species, all united under the command of one human woman. On the bridge of the remembrance, General Elena Vasquez looked at the enemy formation blocking her path. The Vorathi had gathered every ship they had left. Over 1,000 vessels arranged in a defensive sphere around their homeworld. It was the largest fleet assembled in centuries. They outnumber us 3-1. Colonel Santos said. I know, Vasquez replied. Our losses will be severe. I know. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships. This is General Vasquez. 6 years ago the Vorathi attacked Earth. They killed 2 billion of our people. They thought they had destroyed us. Her voice was steady, but there was fire beneath the calm. Today we end this. Not for revenge, not for glory. We fight for every slave who died in their camps. For every species they crushed under their heel. For every child who never got to grow up. She paused. Some of us will not survive this battle, but what we do today will echo across the galaxy forever. We will show them that tyranny always falls, that the oppressed always rise, that hope is stronger than fear. She looked at the wall of names surrounding her. For Earth, for the fallen, forward. The Liberation Fleet charged. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded in flashes of white light. Debris filled space like a deadly rain. The remembrance took hit after hit, its armor melting, its systems failing one by one. General Vasquez did not retreat. She pushed forward, always forward, toward the heart of the enemy formation. Around her, allied ships fell. Friends died. The cost was terrible, but the Vorathi were breaking. They had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that did not fear death. An enemy that rammed when they could not shoot. An enemy that fought with the fury of beings who had nothing left to lose. The Vorathi lines began to collapse. Ships fled. Commanders surrendered. The defensive sphere cracked and shattered like glass. And then the Emperor made his final choice. Deep beneath the surface of Vorath Prime, in a bunker built for exactly this moment, the Vorathi Emperor watched his empire die. He was old, ancient by the standards of his species. He had ruled for 500 years. He had never imagined this. Activate the purifier, he commanded. His advisors stared at him in horror. Your radiance, the purifier, will destroy our own planet. 12 billion of our people will die with honor. The Emperor interrupted. If I cannot rule, then no one will. If humanity wants our world, they will find only ashes. The purifier was a weapon from ancient times, a device that could crack a planet in half. The Vorathi had built it centuries ago, swearing to use it only as a last resort. Now, rather than admit defeat, the Emperor would murder his own people. On the bridge of the remembrance, alarms began to scream. General, the sensor officer shouted. Massive energy buildup on the planet's surface. They are powering some kind of weapon. Vasquez looked at the readings. It is aimed at their own world, she said slowly. They are going to destroy Vorath Prime. Colonel Santos moved to her side. If they do that, our job is done. The war ends. We do not need to lose more ships trying to stop it. Vasquez did not answer immediately. She stared at the planet below, at the purple oceans and golden forests, at the cities where children were playing, unaware that their emperor had decided they should die. She thought about Buenos Aires, about Sofia, about all the children who had been killed for no reason. The Vorathi had done that to her. They deserved to feel the same pain. This was justice, wasn't it? General? Santos pressed. What are your orders? Vasquez closed her eyes. She saw her daughter's face. She heard her daughter's voice. Mama, why do people hurt each other? She opened her eyes. All ships, she said. Target the weapon. Destroy it. Santos grabbed her arm. General, with respect, they are the enemy. They killed our families. Why should we die to save them? Vasquez turned to face him. Her eyes were tired but clear. Their children did not vote for this war, she said. Their children did not kill our families, and I did not fight across the galaxy to become the thing I was fighting against. She looked at the stuffed rabbit sitting on her command console. Sofia had loved that rabbit. She had hugged it every night. If we let 12 billion people die because we want revenge, we are no better than the Vorathi. We are worse, because we know better. We have felt this pain. We know what it does to a species. She raised her voice for the whole bridge to hear. We are humanity. We weep for our dead. We rage against injustice. But we do not murder children. That is not who we are. The fleet responded. Damaged ships pushed toward the planet. Pilots who had lost everything gave what little they had left. The weapon on Vorath Prime was protected by the last Vorathi defenses. Ships that fought with desperate fury. The Remembrance led the charge. Its shields failed. Its engines sputtered. Half the bridge crew was dead or wounded, but it kept moving. In range, the weapons officer gasped, blood running down his face. Fire everything, Vasquez commanded. The Remembrance unleashed every weapon it had. Kinetic rods, missiles, energy beams, all focused on a single point. The purifier exploded. The shockwave knocked the Remembrance spinning through space. Vasquez was thrown from her chair, hitting the floor hard. For a moment, everything was darkness and noise, then silence. She pulled herself up slowly. Through the cracked viewport, she could see Vorath Prime, intact, alive. 12 billion people saved by the species they had tried to destroy. Status report, she said weakly. The weapon is gone, Santos replied. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. But he was smiling. The Vorathi fleet is surrendering. The Emperor has been captured by his own people. They are handing him over to us. Vasquez nodded slowly. It was over. 3 months later, General Elena Vasquez stood in a garden in Buenos Aires. The city had been rebuilt, new buildings rising where old ones had fallen. It would never be the same. But it was alive. The garden was a memorial for the fallen. Millions of names carved in stone, surrounding a fountain that never stopped flowing. In the center was a small section for the Vasquez family. Sofia, Marco, the names of her heart. She had refused every offer of leadership. President of Earth, commander of the new galactic coalition. She had said no to all of it. I am a soldier, she had told them. Not a ruler. I did what needed to be done. Now she stood before her family's names, holding a worn stuffed rabbit. The same rabbit she had carried across the stars. The same rabbit she had clutched while ordering impossible battles. She placed it gently at the base of the memorial. It is over, she whispered. We won. Not just for us. For everyone they ever hurt. She touched her daughter's name with trembling fingers. I hope I made you proud, my love. I hope you understand why I could not rest until it was finished. The sun set over Buenos Aires, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Elena Vasquez sat in the garden as darkness fell, surrounded by the names of the dead. She had carried vengeance across the stars. She had broken an empire, and in the end, she had chosen mercy. That was what made humanity different. Not their rage, not their technology, but their ability to stop, to heal, to rebuild. The war was over, but humanity was just beginning.